So let's get started with our presentation today. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Emily and I have served on some other boards together for I think about 10 years now. Actually, we're on it, 11 o'clock at night on a Teams meeting, going over stuff. We're asking each other questions and helping each other with stuff when we're looking at prospect analytics and things like that. So it's after she puts her boys to bed. We're usually on video chat late at night. So I'm happy that she's able to come here. She is an expert and a wealth of knowledge and prospect research and identifying donors and those key data points we can use to identify donors and ratings and a bunch of stuff. When I first started, Emily taught me a lot of things. So I'm glad that she could be able to be here to share some of that knowledge with all of you. And this is a passion area of mine. The research and analytics side is a passion area of mine. So I will turn it over to Emily. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Well, thanks, AFC Knoxville, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. As Joe mentioned, prospect research is kind of a passion for me. It's something that I've been doing for about 15 years now. You kind of see here some of the things that I really like to do in my day-to-day work. So prospect management is something that we'll talk a little bit about today, proactive and reactive research. Analytical procedures, and then trend forecasting. And really the end game for us is thinking about how to build those prospect pipelines and do some predictive donor modeling. So I have been at Skidmore College. We are a top liberal arts institution, higher ed institution in Saratoga Springs, New York. We have about 2,200 undergrads. Saratoga Springs is kind of in between Albany and Montreal. We're about 3 hours from everything we say, 3 hours from Montreal, 3 hours from New York, 3 hours to Boston. But also in its own right, we are the turning point of the Revolutionary War. And we also have one of the oldest still operating race courses in the country with the Saratoga race course. I like to say it's true that we are the birthplace of the potato chip. We endorse. There are some people that don't believe it, but that's one of our claim to fame.
Seriously, they didn't start in England?
Well, no, my husband who's from Illinois claims that it started in Ireland, and we have a little, but that suggests that it actually started on Saratoga Springs. So in addition, Joe and I, we serve on the board of APRA New York. So APRA is the Association of Professional Researchers in Advancement, and we are the executive leadership of the Upstate New York chapter. I'm the president, Joe is the vice president, but really we're co-captains, I call us. And so we've been involved with that for several years, and then I'm always happy to talk about prospect research with a variety of APRA chapters across the nation and AFC as well. So with that, this is what when I say I do prospect research, I get a lot of questions like this. Oh, so you Google a lot? And yes, we do Google a lot. Now, I know that we all kind of work in different areas of fundraising, but I did overhear while I was eating my very good sandwich from Lisa that some of you do some prospect research for your teams or are kind of dabbling in that world, straddling it a little bit. I heard like capacity was in your title. I think, Lauren, was it you that you do some research for your team?
Yeah, we're starting that, but I come with real estate background that was
That's
really
great,
critical.
Though. You'll see how critical research is to this world in a few minutes. Really, so I support, there are 60 of us in our advancement division. Of that, there are 3 of us in prospect research. There's myself, then I have a prospect researcher, and then I have a data analyst. We are supporting all front-end fundraisers, and we're also supporting our annual fund team and our executive leadership team. All materials that are written from our division, research and event bios, meeting briefings and such that maybe go to the president's office or other partners on campus come from our office. So my background is in journalism, mass communications, and although I'm not your typical Katie Kirk, I do think that having that little sense of curiosity is really important, and being a detective and wanting the truth is all really important and is really key to this. So obviously, you do have to have an in-depth knowledge of Googling, but there's a lot more to it too, and we're going to go over that. So today we are going to talk about what is prospect research. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of that research terminology that you might hear researchers talk about, or data analysts talk a little bit about, why you might want to think about prospect research if you can't have someone on your staff, why you might want to have a dedicated person kind of doing that work, or how you can do some of it yourself if you're in a very small shop. For a long time, I was a single person shop, and I was supporting, like I said, about 60 people in advancement. So it's all about prioritization, but you can do it, and you can teach your gift officers and other people some of the basics, some of the nuts and bolts and foundations of this work. How to think about that pipeline so you can continue to build out your donors for your next campaigns. Some predictive modeling, and then gift capacity, which might be of interest. Some ideas about gift capacity ratings and process. Okay, any questions so far? Are we good? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what is prospect research. A lot of shops don't have research for various reasons, right? Budgets are tight. We've all heard all of that kind of stuff. Staffing, a lot of people are coming and going, part of the Great Resignation. But some of this you can take back and implement in your shops pretty quickly. So prospect research is it's giving you an idea of a potential prospect's ability to give, which is what I'll say sometimes is called capacity. Their giving capacity, and their warmth or affinity towards an organization. And we are looking at basically existing donor backgrounds, but we are also diving into who they are as a person. So we're looking into their personal histories, their wealth indicators, their philanthropic motivations. All of that paints a picture of who your ideal prospect really is. So or organization could be either someone who's already giving to your organization right now, or someone who you want to give to your organization. So that's when you hear fundraising prospect, that's usually what someone in our line of work is referring to. Philanthropic markers, this is the charitable inclination for that warmth to help predict that likelihood that that potential prospect is going to make a donation to your organization. So we mention that as this is being one of our prospect screening tools or information that we like to, that's part of the overall picture. So we look at a few things. A couple of top markers that we look at in our shop at Skidmore College is the past giving to your organization that demonstrates philanthropic behavior to you, and that will show their affinity or warmth. Past giving to other organizations, that is showing philanthropic behavior. So if they are philanthropic someplace else, if you can find what makes them tick, which is what research typically will do, then you can help bring that prospect maybe to your organization. Now, we don't like to poach, but it's just kind of a way that hopefully we can all live together in harmony kind of thing. But the other thing that we typically take a look at too is if a potential prospect is involved as a board member or trustee at another organization, again, that's showing some type of philanthropic behavior. Because typically, hopefully, if they're serving as a board or trustee someplace else, there's a giving component to that, and you have to assume, hopefully, that they are philanthropic to that organization. Wealth indicators are a little bit different than philanthropic markers. So your wealth indicator, again, is a type of prospect screening tool, but instead of showing us their charitable inclination or warmth, this is what we assign to a potential prospect to show their financial capacity to make a donation. I'm going to talk about this a little bit further in the presentation, but at Skidmore College, we have a total wealth identifier that we use, and I'll go into the specifics of how we do that later on in the presentation. But we gauge our giving capacity over a 5-year period, and it's their overall philanthropic capacity, not just what they can give to Skidmore College, for example. What they can give to Skidmore College is captured in our solicitations and proposals. So that was a little bit of a shift for us at Skidmore. For quite some time, we were kind of doing capacities in the way that this is what they could give to Skidmore, and we've started to kind of go away with that, and it's more in line now with APRA, which is our governing body, and APRA National for us. This is how they also do financial capacity, and a lot of your third-party platforms do it this way as well, like Donor Search, iWave, any of the ones that you might be using as a subscription. You'll see that 5 or 10% of the overall total identifiable wealth assets is what they're using over a 5-year period. So it's kind of all in line with that. So again, wealth indicators. This is the prospect's financial capacity to make a donation. A couple of things that might be interesting. So you were mentioning real estate, Florence. So real estate ownership, prospects who give $2 million or who own $2 million in real estate are 17 times more likely to make a charitable donation. So that's a flag. If someone has a lot, and the thing about real estate, and I have a few gift officers where I work that kind of push back on this a little bit, because obviously there's inflation, and we talk a little bit about how we deal with places like Boston and Chicago and New York, some of your bigger cities. But it is at least a tangible piece of a wealth indicator that we can show that is definitely in our equation for determining financial capacity. The other thing I want to mention quickly is political campaigns and contributions. Prospects who have contributed at least $2,500 to a political campaign in his or her lifetime are 15 times more likely to give a charitable donation organization. Why? Again, it's showing feels is near and dear to their heart. So that is another tangible thing that we can kind of hold as in terms of wealth indicator. Business affiliations and compensation are 2 additional pieces. These can be a little bit trickier to find, but for example, like attorneys, you can pretty much find, and managing directors in financial firms and that kind of thing, you can kind of get a sense of what they are potentially making on an annual basis, and additionally bonuses and whatnot. But also there are third-party platforms like Donor Search and iWave that will also spit that information out in terms of their overall profiles that they might generate for you. So what makes someone a good prospect? So we kind of know that there's philanthropic markers, there's wealth indicators, but what else is there? So a couple of things, just to kind of reiterate some of the things that we've talked about already, but the philanthropic behavior to your organization, if that person is already giving to your organization, their foot's already in your door, you know, so at that point, you just need to qualify further. Sometimes research can help with that piece a little bit, because we can kind of give you an idea or a sense of some of the other places where they might be giving at what level. So it kind of gives you an idea of what you could be asking for, or it can also give you the idea of what initiative you might want to focus on. Nonprofit involvement, again, it shows that willingness to serve someplace else. They may be willing to pivot a little bit and also come to your organization. Again, we don't like to poach, but maybe there's enough love in their heart for both organizations or numerous ones. And of course, personal information. So this is where we dig a little bit deeper, and this is the part that kind of creeps people out a little bit about what we do in prospect research. I just want to reiterate that everything that we find in the work that we do at Skidmore College is public information. We're not being super creepy. We're not looking into people's bank accounts. I will say LexisNexis, which is a paid subscription of ours, will give us ideas of mortgages and that kind of thing, bankruptcies, but we're not, I don't know how much is on people's credit cards. I don't know, like really that debt. If they have a UCC lien or something, I can find that, but everything is personal. Everything that's personal is public. So we're not doing anything super duper creepy. That being said, it is always kind of funny when, if I do help out at an advancement-wide division event with donors, my executive leadership have very slyly put Office of Advancement on my name tag. And they often say, oh, Emily does data. Because a few times people have said to me, well, no, what really do you do? And so I often just say I help support the college's mission financially by looking into others that can also support the college's mission financially. So it's not super, I try and kind of, if you say, oh, I know all about you, it's your name tag, you don't know I know all about you. Oh, how's Muffy your dog? It might be kind of creepy. People are really great about social media. A lot of people are very open on social media. A lot of public information is on social media. It's a great resource to kind of find some of that personal information to see what ticks. For example, if you have a prospect that's really into UT football, who I guess everybody is down here.
She's been here for 5
I've been here
minutes.
for 5 minutes.
Taking her to the tailgate on Saturday.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're not going to the game. We're gonna go to the more important part, the tailgate.
Yeah. So, but anyway, if we were back in Saratoga, for example, and on social media, there was, a prospect who was talking a lot about, say, Skidmore hockey, I would probably flag that person for our athletic fundraiser and say, listen, he's been commenting a lot on the Skidmore hockey's run for the NEHC, championship game, and this might be somebody that you might want to talk a little bit more about hockey with. So
You have a lot of horse owners, right?
we do have a lot of horse owners.
Because of the racetrack.
Because of the racetrack, we do, and that's something that our writing center is, and our writing team at Skidmore is one of the top equestrian teams in the nation. And actually, parents, we screen all of our incoming parents, and that's a whole other beast, and that could be a whole other presentation about how we screen parents. But yeah, that's a whole other ballgame. So the benefits of prospect research, first of all, one of the biggest benefits is that we're identifying new prospects for the organization, right? That's part of that building of the pipeline. And so uncovering that valuable professional and personal connection that your donors might have either into your community or to yourself is really what helps facilitate those introductions. So we're arming our gift officers with enough background and enough information. And it's funny, my gift officers come to me with different things. Some gift officers like all the information that they can possibly get. I want to know everything about this person before I actually walk in the door or before I even call them. I want to know everything. Other gift officers want to know a little bit less because they want to come off as being a little bit more authentic in their conversation. They might not be able to balance that well if they know too much about that prospect. So typically what we would do, I would say more times than not, is that we will arm our gift officers with just enough information that they need to go out and then qualify. But finding major gift prospects among your donor pool is another benefit, right? We'll talk a little bit about this in the next slide, but when you can look into your own donor pool and see donors that are already giving, they're already showing that little information, and then we come in and research and add their capacity value to that, their giving capacity value, it really opens up this door to this wondrous place where you have like almost like a magic ball where you can go in and solicit at a level that makes sense. Sometimes, we've had this happen where a major gift officer will go in way too low, with an ask, and that can it can set the relationship back. And now you're kind of reverting back to square one. So we can arm them with as much information as possible in terms of what their philanthropic behavior is outside of the organization. It really sets them up well. We work very closely with our parents program, for example. In senior year, they always have a senior family gift committee where they will be fundraising for a specific initiative for the senior family. So last year it was mental health, for example. So the senior family project raised money for a scholarship that was in the mental health area. And one of the things that we did in research was that we went through and looked at all of our rated major gift parents, and we were able to provide our gift officers with an idea of what they had given to their secondary schools at time of graduation. So that way, a lot of them went in with $100,000 asks or $50,000 asks based on what their last gift had been when their student graduated from high school, and that actually shook out rather well. Our parent program raised nearly $3 million last year. So how to build a prospect pipeline. Okay, so manual screening is one way that you can do this, right? This is where you you quickly rate, kind of like it's a session, boom, 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 by hand, right? So this is for your small, very focused lists. You have an event, there's 20 people coming, they're, you know, who's on this list, who's worthy of some major gift attention. Targeted lists. So we do this a lot at Skidmore. These are our specific initiatives. For example, athletics is an initiative that we're working on right now. We're not technically in a campaign. We finished our last campaign, which was $220 million. We finished that campaign in December of 2021. And that was specifically for the sciences. We are building a new science building at Skidmore College. We are a liberal arts college, but 40% of our students major in the sciences. So we had to stay relevant. And so that meant we had to build a new science building. So what we did was, and even for that campaign, we pulled very targeted lists to see who our top donors would be for our campaign for the sciences, based on, again, that behavior, right? Behavior to what they're giving to us, behavior to what they're giving to other places, but also some of those other philanthropic markers and some of those wealth indicators all put together to paint one picture. When you get all this picture together, it's the perfect storm of that ideal prospect. And so that's why all these steps are so important. Even if you do them out of order, you can still get the same results. Wealth screening. So this is when you take a large group of potential donors and you send them to a third-party vendor. We've done this a couple of times. We've done it with Target Analytics, which is a black bond company. And then we've also done it a couple times with Donor Search, which is a subscription company as well. And we also have a subscription to iWave, and we run our parents typically through iWave. Each one spits out some things that are a little bit different, but each one they all do the same things in the foundation of them, which is they are going to provide a quick return, and they segment it for you, and they're going to show you your wealthiest people on top and your most capable prospects. Now, if you're in a small shop, you take it for what it's worth at face value. But I'll tell you, it is worthwhile to have somebody vet it, at least your top percent of them. The really, really wealthy top percent that comes back, there is a very small number anyway that typically comes back. Like when we did our last one in February of 2022, we ran all prospects, we ran all donors through Donor Search who had given in the last campaign. We had a 7-year campaign. We ran 30,000 people through. Of those 30,000 people, I'm going to say maybe 150 came back as a DS1-1, the highest level of wealth. So we, in my shop, looked at each one. Some of them you know about, so you don't have to look at them again. It's your board of trustee members. It's the same old, you know, but we're trying to curb donor fatigue. Mm-hmm. And that's where wealth screens can come in handy. Even if you find one bluebird in there, one person that you didn't know about, it's a win. So for us at Skidmore, we use Donor Search, we use iWave, and then we also use LexisNexis. Those are all 3 paid subscriptions that we're very fortunate to have. Peer screening. We did this in 2019 with our board. We used RealSide, which has been bought out, I think, Joe, by somebody else. RealSide. It's been bought out maybe by Blackbaud now. I don't know. At the time, it was just RealSide. Blackbaud's a monopoly. So, but we decided that we wanted to give our board, who are, you know, top in their fields, very philanthropic people all across the nation, we wanted to hand them a list and say, so we know that you're connected to these 50 people that we think could be beneficial to Skidmore. Do you know any of them? Because this company is suggesting that you might know them. And you know what? They loved it. To the point where now when we screen our incoming parent classes, we will share with the board our top rated folks to see if anybody knows them. Because we're not asking them for money, which they're kind of used to us doing. We're not asking them for money, we're asking them to be helpful. And they like that. It makes them feel worthwhile, you know? So that was something that actually worked out well enough that we do that quite a bit, peer screening. You can also do this with an engaged alum, someone who is a good volunteer, who might not, what we call our donor connectors, right? So they themselves may not have major gift capacity, but they're really connected and well connected with a lot of people either in their class or in their community. So we'll also share a list with them. Some of our best volunteers will take a look at our specific targeted initiative list that we might have to see if there's anything there, especially for class volunteer and reunion fundraising. Data mining. So we do this quite a bit. My data analyst does this quite a bit. We get a lot of questions about identifying, you're basically looking for patterns. So this is when you're going to use your CRM. I'm assuming a lot of you are on, what type of CRM? We're on Thank You, which nobody really uses, but does anybody?
Kindful donor.
Donors.
Yeah.
Donor Perfect.
Thank you. I keep
Okay.
wanting to say donor search because I'm not.
Yeah.
Boomerang.
Okay, so
Boomerang.
you guys have, okay, there's some I haven't even,
Razor's
there's a lot of
Edge.
CRMs out there, but they all should have some type of functionality where you can pull information out of it. We look a lot at Skidmore for lifetime giving. We look a lot for a last gift date, and then field of specialization, which for us is employment. So we know, for example, at Skidmore College, a lot of our athletes are, so you can have a certain initiative that you're looking to finish a campaign or something like that, and you need like a little push in that last, quarter of the game, right? Football, last quarter of the game. Then that's data mining is a great way to kind of finish it off with a win. So a little bit more about third-party platforms. This is what I talked about a little bit before, Donor Search, iWave, LexisNexis. They are all providing you with actionable information. Information that what we tend to do is we will take this information, like from a wall screening, for example, and we'll put it into a visualization, into a kind of help you with that. They sometimes will spit out like little charts and graphs and whatnot that you can use, but we do a lot of it in-house ourselves. And it will identify the best prospective major gift donors, annual fund donors, and planned gift donors based on that philanthropic and wealth analytics that I was talking about before. So the wealth indicators, the philanthropic motivations, it kind of spits that out. And what we do is sometimes when we get that information back, even if we haven't finished going through everything, we like to show our leadership that these are actionable people, this is how we're doing it, and they really like that. Enough so that we'll even share that with the board, just to kind of show that this is what our trajectory is. This is what we're hoping to accomplish. It's all about showing those patterns of philanthropy. And then I'll show in a couple slides about that algorithm that we use, that Donor Search and iWave also kind of use within that scope of giving capacity. These are some free research tools. So if you're in a small shop that doesn't have a big budget, these are some things that you can do. LinkedIn is fabulous. And LinkedIn has a search feature that you can use filters. So for instance, I will filter quite a bit anybody who attended Skidmore College, especially if there's an event going on. Let's say we have a panel and it's for Wall Street 101 panel. We want to get some young alums who would be great for this panel to come back to campus and talk to our students. Well, LinkedIn is actually more up to date than our CRM because young students, or young alumni these days, they change jobs like their underpants. So, and they don't think to let us know at Skidmore College that they've changed their jobs. So it's up to us in research to find it. So LinkedIn, they have filters that you can do by region, by city, by the institution that they might have attended, And that's a really great resource I can't talk enough about. And it's free. Now, I will say there are times that I've hit my commercial limit in terms of searching, and it can happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but if I've had a really busy month, that's why you just make a dummy account. Yahoo Finance, home valuation websites, that's like your Zillows, your Redfins, all of those. Now, home valuation websites are typically high, so take it with a grain of salt. I'll say like it might come back on Zillow that a house is worth X amount, and then you might go into LexisNexis and the home valuation is much lower. We are conservative in our shop. We go on the other side. We'd rather be too conservative and come back with a surprise and go the other way. So political contributions is another one, as I mentioned before. FEC, there are public records for that you can find. Just Google it and you'll find it. Okay, I'm gonna take a break for a second. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Okay.
Great.
We're going to talk a little bit about predictive modeling. I just wanted to touch on this for example. I call this analytical storytelling. Data tells a story, and the journalist in me loves that. The data doesn't lie. We just have to figure out what the data is saying. So a couple things that we can do when we do predictive model scores in-house. You can get obviously predictive modeling scores through your third-party vendors. If you have a donor search or an iWave, they will generate these for you. And it's usually a likelihood score. And they base that on a few things. First of all, there's two pieces to predictive modeling, right? There's the actual model, but there's also the person. And that's what you're really looking at when you do predictive modeling. You're a person, when you look into a person, you're looking for those descriptive data points. And that is their location. That could be what their common denominator is. And a lot of times, like for us at Skidmore College, that common denominator could be they all played on a specific sport together, or they were all in the same a cappella group together. There's got to be some kind of commonality between them. Then once you have that all figured out, who the people actually are, then you can dive into that modeling piece. And that's the distinct between if this is like a very high level look into it, it gets a little bit more complicated than this, and that could be a whole other presentation. But we do a lot of in-house predictive modeling, and we do that a few ways. Another example would be right now we're doing our parent screening for our incoming class. So we screen everyone that comes into every first year student that comes into our college. We take a look at if they're on full pay. So what we've done is we built in a couple of different criteria in-house, and we've scored them. So for instance, if they're in one of the hot zip codes, every year there's a list that's released of the 100 hottest, wealthiest zip codes. We will download that into Excel, and we do a filter on that to pull those out, and we give them a certain weighted score if they're in a hot zip code. If they come from a private school, we'll weight that a little bit differently. There are different factors that we use in-house to weight, and it kind of, we use that in conjunction with an iWave or donor search screen, and it gives us a little bit of a way to streamline exactly how we're going to tackle this project. Especially when you're, in this case, we're screening, it could be up to 400 families. So we need a way to kind of get through those quickly, and that's how we do that. Data storytelling. This is an example of one of our dashboards that we will do at Skidmore. This is actually for one of our hygiene reviews that we call a hygiene review or a prospect review. A couple times a year, my team will sit down with everyone who has a prospect pool. And we do this type of analysis for it. We'll pull out their top 10 donors. We'll pull out their pool by status or stage, whatever your organization might call it. But this is your donor engagement movement, right? We like to show what their giving history is in terms of by month. So we can kind of say, hey, it looks like, March might be a big month for you. Let us know if we can help. We do the count of prospects by age because we do have a gift planning component within our advancement shop. So that's always kind of important, especially those undocumented requests there. That's money on the table. Those are people that have said that we are will, we just don't know for how much. Prospects who have given a gift within 1 year, we always pull that out. That's our total staff prospects number there. And then this is our prospect rating by the percentage of our prospects by rating. And I'll talk a little bit about how our ratings go in a second. But this is just an example of a dashboard that we would do for our prospect reviews. And my analyst sends this out once a month.
So Emily,
Yeah.
you do all of this in Power BI,
Power
right?
BI.
So in case, if anyone doesn't know what that is, if you have Office 365, this is part of that suite of tools you get from Office 365.
What's it called again?
Microsoft Power BI,
Power
it's
BI.
It's
B as in boy.
Microsoft's business intelligence
Okay.
software, and it is part of the Office 365 package that you already paid for.
And
This is one of the tools in that set of
Good, that's why.
software you get as part of that package.
And if you don't have it, you can download the desktop version for free. It's very similar to Excel. So if you're savvy in Excel, you'll find it pretty user friendly. So, and the nice thing about this too is that this is not a static report. It's live. So it's connected into, we write a lot of code in my office. So we were able to connect this on the backside of our CRM, and it's constantly being updated based on donor activity.
And you're
So-
doing that with SQL, right?
We use SQL.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, we're all self-taught. I mean, we didn't have any special classes or anything. We did LinkedIn Learning. We've done Coursera, we've done Udemy, but we're all self-taught. And so anybody can do this. That's another presentation. Okay, so I want to talk for a second about giving capacity ratings, because you heard me talk about that before here when I said the percentage of prospects by rating, and you see all these P scores over here. This is how Skidmore College, this is how we do our ratings. So the P6 through P1 are our major gift capacity scores. And again, this is what we think that they can give to the college, well, not just to the college, but to all philanthropic, I call it their philanthropic wallet. This is their philanthropic wallet over a 5-year period. If we become if we become their philanthropic priority, then that's what they can give to Skidmore. But until that happens, that's what they can give to all of their charitable donations. These here are, so our long-term prospects, those are given to typically our young alums who come from a family of wealth. So we want to keep tabs on them, because the worst thing is, you don't want to cold call somebody 10 years from now in the next campaign. We want to keep them warm. So we will put an LT rating on them. A couple criteria for them. So they have to come from a family of wealth. So that means that their family has history of wealth, or their family has given 6 figures to us or somebody else, or they have a family foundation of $5 million or more. A suspect is someone that we think has major capacity. They have indicators, but we just can't tell. So for that reason, we will put a suspect code on them, and that's where we really encourage our gift officers to go out and qualify. Gift planning, those are our folks that will never give a major gift in their lifetime. We really don't think so, but they could in their estate plans. So we'll give them a GP rating. This is typically for our older ones, but it can be across the board. GN are our gift officer networks. Those are those connectors. Remember before I talked about people looking at the lists of that's an engaged alum perhaps and is a connector in their class. That's where that GN might come from. I have gift officers that keep GNs in their pool because they're their connection into places. We have one of my gift officers has somebody at JP Morgan. Is he a prospect? Probably. Has he said that he's going to give us a major gift? No. But he will say, I will introduce you to everybody else that I know that's a Skidmore alum that works here. And we're like, okay. So we make him a GN. Our annual fund prospect is anybody that makes a gift at that 50,000 level or below, right? So those are this is where that pipeline work is happening. A lot of our Skidmore fund officers work that hard and then they move up. Really good example is our current our current chair of the board started as a really solid annual fund prospect, moved her way right up. Now she's the chair of the board. So the rating process, this is how we do it at Skidmore. So it begins with that qualification of the total identifiable assets. Now, some of those assets, so some of those identifiable assets are those tangible things that we can find. Real estate is absolutely one of the things that we can find. So that's one of the biggest components of this. But there's also stock holdings, company ownership, income, and a lot of that information comes to us through those subscriptions that we have. We use a multiplier. So we will add up our identifiable wealth assets, and then we use a multiplier. So if they have a TIA of under 1 million, so these are kind of like our annual fund prospects, we'll multiply that total by a 1.75 to a 3. That's the multiplier. And the multiplier is based on the researcher's discretion. That gut instinct helps a lot. If they're over $1 million, then we up that multiplier to 3.25 to 6. I've never used a 6. A 6 is for like your Bill Gates of the world. And if you have them as a donor, then you're really lucky. But a lot of us don't have that. So we don't use a 6 at all. Most of the time I use between 3.25 and then maybe a 3.5. I think maybe once I went to a 4. So once you do that, and you have to take into account real estate again, right? So if that is your only asset, okay, and sometimes that happens, we can't find anything else on anybody. All we can find is that they own multiple homes. And if it's in New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C., one of those hot spots where you know cost of living is astronomical, we will only rate by a 3. Because we want to take that into account. And then you take 5% of that total. For us, we take 5%, that's an industry standard. Most organizations will take either 5 or 10%. Again, when we're conservative, so we take 5%. And that's your overall giving capacity in the 5-year period.
Emily,
Yes.
how do you figure in there? So I know some people, and I know you probably found this, and I've found this before. They own yachts,
Yeah.
airplanes,
They're
helicopters.
just toys.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're zooming in on their house on Google Maps, and you see the helipad in their backyard.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, next to the pool.
That's where the multiplier comes in a little bit. You know, so if I see that, it depends on what their philanthropic behavior is. You know, it kind of depends on what their behavior is in general, right? Those people probably have really robust social medias where they're like in Italy and everywhere else. You be careful because they can be, you know, stuck for.
Mhm.
But in that case, that's where that multiplier comes in handy because you're gonna use a very conservative multiplier then. That multiplier kind of gauges that a little bit. So you might just use the lowest multiplier possible, or you might just take 5% of their total identifiable wealth assets, and that's that. So this is an example of what we would do for calculating a giving capacity. So, you know, here's an example of primary house. And for me, I am a journalist by training, so I like to know, I like my source. I want to know where I found something, and that way I can be very transparent with my gift officers when they ask me, how did you come up with this? And honestly, we went with this algorithm because I never wanted a gift officer to say that, let's say I rate more conservative than my prospect researcher, than my data analyst. We wanted to make there be some consistency among our ratings. And I want them to always know where we were getting our information from. Additionally, whenever I'm in my notes section of my CRM, if I find an article or anything, I always put the source with a link to where I got it from. Because I don't want to ever have to go back 5 months from now, 2 years from now, and be like, where does that come from? Because I want to make sure it's always there, so that if for some reason I get hit by the lottery bus and I'm not there anymore, the next prospect researcher will know where it came from. So that said, here's some examples of, here are some property and other assets that we might find. That's what we're going to add up here. You're going to multiply that by, let's say, 3.25. And then you get that total over there for total wealth estimate. Then you take that 5% of this, and then you get that 4.7 over a 5-year period, which is equivalent to RP5. So that's just kind of an example of what we would do for that. Okay, what else should you know about capacity ratings? Okay, a couple of things. This is not perfect science. It's not perfect. And we go into that saying, that there are, it's based on hard data, but it's not perfect. So, so I always say that to my gift officers. I also say that we are very, like I said before, we're conservative. I'd rather be conservative than inflate. The best way to qualify a gift capacity rating is with a visit. That's the best way that we can do this, right? So we're going to go out there, we're going to arm our gift officers and our fundraisers with the best information that we can possibly have for them, but really it's up to them to go and qualify that person and come back and tell us what they found in that qualification visit. Obviously, that TWE model for us is one of the first steps in this when we paint the overall profile for a donor. That's just a piece of it, in addition to those other philanthropic markers. And a couple other things that should be considered along with wealth. A couple questions to ask yourself. Giving history. Has the individual already made their big gift to your organization? If they have, then all this other stuff really might not matter that much. Okay. Are their primary philanthropic interests, what are they at this time? Are we that interest at this time? If we don't know, then that's great. Then we can go out and qualify and find out. But what is happening in his or her life at this time? This is really important. And this is where prospect research comes in handy. If someone's dealing with an illness, if someone has multiple kids in college, if there are things that are happening personally in someone's life that might prohibit them from making a major gift to our organization, then that's something that we have to take into consideration. This is the most important thing I can ever say. Research doesn't downgrade ratings if a prospect inclination is low. We have an inclination score in our CRM. We use that. So somebody might come back to me after this qualifying visit and they might say they have capacity, but they're never going to give 4 points. They're never going to give this amount to Skidmore College. Great. That's great that we know that. Capture on the inclination score. I'm not changing the rating because the giving capacity is correct. It's the inclination that they have to update. Okay. These are some things that we use. Like I mentioned, LexisNexis Donor Search. Here are some of those things that Donor Search uses and pulls from, along with iWave. But here are some additional things. Foundation Directory. They do have like a free component to that. I use GuideStar a lot. They have a free component of that as well. Zillow, Manta is great for small businesses. Obviously LinkedIn, SEC filings, and Glassdoor is great for salaries. This is my funny thing that I'm going to end with. So I do have a lot of, I had one gift officer at Skidmore who when he addresses me, he says, "Dear sorcerer, I have a question. Can you find me blah, blah, blah." And I'll be like, okay, because you're helping that, sure. So, but I think this kind of sums up what I do on a day-to-day basis for everyone. So, and then, yeah, just please keep in touch. One of the things that I love really about APRA is that I always am happy to talk research anytime. I'm happy to talk fundraising anytime. Pick me on LinkedIn. Joe has my email. I can give you a card. But would love to keep in touch and, always happy to talk about anything that you might have questions about. So that's it.
Great.
Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I've been holding back.
Yeah. Okay.
As I've been interrupting.
Well, actually, you answered several of them as you went along, but I think my, and I don't want to necessarily say I'm speaking for everybody, but my biggest challenge is like your gift officers. I know what to do when you hand me the info. I can take it, run with it. You're handing me a gold mine. But we are a really small shop. I don't have you in my hip pocket.
Right.
Are there people like you who freelance?
I do. Yes.
That's what I was hoping I was
Yes.
going to hear. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yes, absolutely.
Because what I discovered when we used Donor Search and when we started the capital campaign, one of our campaign consultants is an absolute genius when it comes to making sense out of all those tables in Donor Search. And I'm looking at it and I'm seeing just a blur that wants to make me cry. And before I knew it, she handed me a list and said, "You got some hidden talent in here." And she was right. I mean, there was like multiple gifts that came out of that. But I don't have her anymore.
Yes.
So that is an option. Freelancing is an option with you guys.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, there are a lot of Prospect Reach freelancers.
Yeah.
And I might be able to get you some free help if we can work something out, because I now teach this to students.
Uh-huh.
And I would love someone to let me use their live data for the students to identify the prospects for you.
Do we have any ethical concerns or confidentiality? What do we have to work around
I've
that?
actually had students sign NDAs for you. And it's not a big deal. The small group of students I have doing it, because I do as an independent study.
Yeah.
For those that are really advanced and can learn how to do predictive analytics and analyze the data and create the dashboards and stuff, I'll just have them do an MBA with you.
Yeah, hi, okay.
Yeah.
But
Sign me
I
up.
can sometimes get, free because I can incorporate it into a course.
That's terrific. How often do you recommend that you send your entire file back to Donor Search and do a complete overall screening?
Right, well, it's expensive. So you want to be really strategic about when you do it. So for us, we did it a couple times. I'll tell you when we did it. So we did it in the middle of our 7-year campaign because we were at that point where we were hitting that donor fatigue.
Stagnation.
So I would say you want to do it in the beginning of a campaign, absolutely do it in the beginning of a campaign, and then do it in the middle. And then do it before you're getting ready to launch your next one. So, and I would say you want to do it at least a year out before launching silently your next one.
Have you discovered that most recently that the pandemic or years ago during the financial crisis that there was significant changes
No, actually,
necessarily?
I found that people are more philanthropic now than ever.
Okay, that actually follows suit with
Isn't
what
that
we're seeing.
interesting? Yeah, people are more philanthropic now than they ever were before.
So tell me about the as I said, we have Donor Search, but I've seen iWave.
Yeah.
But you use both.
I use
Can you
both.
tell me the pros and cons of?
Yeah, I use both because they're both so different.
Uh-huh.
They're similar and different at the same time. And the thing that's really interesting about both is that you will put the same constituent in both and you'll come back with different information on both. So for instance,
But not contradictory,
not
just
contradictory,
different.
but different. So for instance, iWave is really great and up to date with the political contributions, where Donor Search is a little bit lagged in that. iWave has better foundation information, where Donor Search is a little bit lagging in that. However, their charitable contributions are more accurate and up to date in Donor Search than they are in iWave. It'd be great if they could just combine their efforts, right? So they're a little bit different. Now, both Donor Search and iWave have other functionality that are very similar. They both have RFM scores. They both have likelihood scores. They both have analytics components built in. The nice thing about a third-party platform is that if you don't have in-house research, you can use them in that capacity if you needed to. They have those analytical capabilities that, as long as you have somebody there maybe who's a little bit savvy when it comes to like data visualization, you can sit down like the woman who was, or the person who was consulting for you can do. It is pretty, I'll say that Donor Search and iWave are both small enough companies where you can absolutely utilize their people, and they will, I have emailed, like my rep and everything, and they are very helpful because they're small.
Yeah.
Research Point and Blackbaud is very big. They have turned over before, and I don't even know who my new account representative is.
Yeah.
But iWave and Donor Search, and Joe and I are very fortunate because we have them as sponsors for our Akron, New York chapter. But
I know the owners of both companies, because we worked with them for 5 years.
but they're both small enough where they're still very much customer focused. So, for instance, when we ran our Donor Search screening in February of 2022, my executive did this. So we had to actually pull our well screening because there was a mishap in there. There was something that was not accurately put into the template, and Donor Search said, no problem, we're not going to charge you for that. Fix it, we'll help you fix it. This is what you want to do. And then we fixed it and ran it back through, and it was like no problem. They're family owned, and it's definitely, you can definitely tell.
Yeah, and they integrate with some CRMs like Kindful.
Yes,
What I love
absolutely.
about it when I'm seeing
We
a new
have that,
donor that
yes.
just gave us $50 or whatever, and then it's
And
going,
they
oh, they have
update
the
it
capacity
annually.
for 25,000 or
Yes.
100,000.
They
or
update your demographics annually.
Yes.
So that's another really great point about it. And they both have subscriptions where you can do multiple years. It's a little bit cheaper. You can do annual, whatever. But those are, so we have some in-house predictive modeling scores, but it's nice to just kind of use that in hand and in conjunction with some of the third-party vendors. So,
So you kind of accidentally sometimes find people just, I'm in there doing other things and I happen to glance over there now on a regular
Yeah.
basis, like, what am I going to say?
Yeah, and that's great. And the nice thing about donor search and IWAVE is that they both have different levels of likelihood, right? So you have your annual fund likelihood, you have your major gift likelihood, and you even have a plain giving likelihood. So, and all of those are great pieces that you can pull into like a prospect management session with someone and say, hey, they're popping. I always call it like a stool, right? It's like a little stool. If you have a in-house research giving capacity, if you have a high donor search or an IWAVE, if you have those, it's kind of like a little stool. If you can get the trifecta, then you're in really good shape. So, and if they're already a donor to you or they're showing philanthropic behavior outside of your organization, that's a gold mine.
We have time for one more question. If anyone has one, we're about 5 minutes to 1 o'clock.
You didn't cover everybody's questions.
Oh. What up,
If
people?
you have any other questions, Joel knows how to find me. So
You just answered the magic question. You're available for.
I am. If I can help, let me know. So, okay. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
This is awesome.
Joel will definitely talk with you about getting involved in the student project. But if you want to share a business card with me,
Yes, absolutely.
there may be.
Awkward.
And the